Okay guys, I'm going to show you in this video how to do a granny square with one color of yarn and a chain ring. So you'll start with a slip knot, however you do that, attach it to your hook, and then you're going to chain 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Then you're going to slip stitch to the first chain, and slip stitch is inserting your hook, yarning over and pulling through that loop and the one that was on your hook. So there's your little donut or your circle that you're going to work your stitches into the center of. So then you want to chain 3, and the chain 3 in this pattern counts as your first double crochet. Now there is 3 double crochets to a cluster, so we're going to do a cluster and then a set of 4 clusters. So chain 3. We're going to yarn over, pull up a loop, pull through 2, pull through 2. So there's our first double and our third double. So the first cluster is complete. We'll chain 2, yarn over, and do our next cluster. And the chain 2 space is the corner. So we're going to do a cluster here. And then a chain 2. And we're making 4 clusters to make a square, even though we're working in a circle or a round. So we're going to do double crochet, double crochet. There's our third cluster, chain 2, and our last cluster. Now, once you have your last cluster, you need to complete the square. So we're going to chain 2. So there's our final cluster. We've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. You can count the posts. 1, 2, 3. That's our first one. 1, 2, 3. Second cluster. 1, 2, 3. Third. 1, 2, 3. Fourth. So we're going to chain 2 and join at the top of your chain 3. So there's the first chain, second chain, third chain. So I'm going to insert here and create a slip stitch by yarning over and pulling through the stitch and the loop that was on my hook. Now for the same color squares, we chain 3 and then flip our work so that we can work into the chain space that's behind our stitch. So we turn it, and then we're going to do a corner cluster. So a corner cluster is a cluster, chain 2, and a cluster. So there's 1, 2, 3, chain 2, 1, 2, 3. Now the second round is made up of corner clusters and chain 1s in between those corner clusters. And the chain 1 is creating the space for round 3 to do an additional cluster. So make sure to chain 1 before you start your next corner. So 1, 2, 3, chain 2, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so you can see that that's a corner and that's a corner. So I'm going to chain 1 and do another corner cluster. So that's a cluster, chain 2, cluster is what the corner cluster is called. Chain 2 and then 3 double crochet. There's 1, there's 2, and there's 3. Okay, chain 1 and then do another corner cluster. So 1, 2, 3, chain 2, and cluster. Okay, and then you want to chain 1 to make that space for your round 3, and then you're going to slip stitch to the top of your beginning chain 3. So you're at the top of the beginning chain, yarn over, pull through that stitch and the loop that was on your hook. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to chain 3, and we're going to work into the chain space to the right of our stitch. So we're going to turn our work. Now this is making the first side cluster. So you're just going to do 2 double crochet into this chain space below from the previous round. So our chain 3 counts as 1, and then we're going to do 2 double crochet. There we go. Now you're going to chain 1, and then you're going to do a corner cluster. So that's a set of 3, and then a chain 2, and then a set of 3 double crochets. Okay, and then you want to chain 1 and do 1 cluster into this chain 1 space from the previous round. So there's 1, 2, and 3. Chain 1, and we've got 1, 2, 3. Chain 2, and 1, 2, 3. So you're just going to keep repeating that around. So you're going to chain 1 and do a set of 3, and then chain 1 and then do your corner clusters. And we're going to just do that all the way around. And feel free to slow this down. I know that I'm going through this pretty quickly. So I want you to at least get the idea of how to complete 3 rounds of a granny square. Chain 1. Set of 3 clusters. Chain 1, and then we're going to do a corner cluster set. So 2 and 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, okay, and then we're going to chain 1 and link it to the top of our chain 3 of our start. So I'm going to go through the top here, yarn over and pull through that stitch and the loop that was on my hook. So that is 3 rounds of a granny square with 1 color and a chain 5 ring. So that completes that project.